official fan-made story I have created regarding how the Prince Vegeta that we have come to know in Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super actually ends up becoming king of Planet Vegeta. Keep in mind this story is going to different from the canon story in the canon universe that we have all come to know. In this version of the story, Planet Vegeta is not in any alliance with the Frieza Force. In fact, for the sake of this story, the Frieza Empire are on the complete opposite side of the universe with no knowledge of these Saiyans. So there's your setting for the context of this story revolving around King Vegeta. Now, let's begin with episode 1. The story starts off showing King Vegeta and a few of his strongest soldiers en route to a planet of androids for a peacekeeping mission. This planet of androids have caused tremendous problems for various other planets and life forms throughout Universe 7. King Vegeta wants to quell this uprising and chaos by forming a truce with the androids by giving them some valuable items in exchange for them to stop the violence. So if you can't tell already, this version of King Vegeta is completely different from the King Vegeta we know of in the canon story of Dragon Ball Z. Obviously, the King Vegeta in the canon story was much more unlikable. In fact, he was kind of a DI, you know what. So this King Vegeta is the complete opposite of the one that we have obviously come to know as well, just for some additional context. As the Saiyans approach the planet, they communicate with the androids' defense team that they are within arrival distance. Upon reaching the surface of the planet, there's an ominous reddish-orange glow to the atmosphere. It's much different from that of Planet Vegeta. The architectural design of the city landscapes are quite appealing to the eye. The buildings are very sharp and defined, almost to perfection. But of course, a planet of androids would have the best quality of paying extreme attention to detail when designing things. As King Vegeta and his troops step off their ship, they are greeted by the Android King himself, who's the main figurehead in charge of this planet. Android King says, "Saiyan King, welcome to our planet. We have been waiting for your arrival. You can refer to me as the Android King." King Vegeta responds, "Thank you for taking the time to have this meeting with us, Android King. We are excited to discuss the future with you and the inhabitants of your planet." So the Android King says, "Yes, I understand that you want to propose a deal to us in some sort of exchange." King Vegeta then goes on to say, "Indeed, I want to cut straight to the point as we do have to get back en route very soon. We have received multiple reports that inhabitants from this planet, your planet, have been causing chaos and waging wars, violent wars, against other planets. In order to preserve peace and to keep violence to an utmost minimum, we would like to instruct you and your androids to stop the violence immediately. In exchange for this, we will give you some valuable resources that could help some of you and your inhabitants learn to control their anger and aggression. This is a very generous offer I am making to you. Us Saiyans have managed to help out so many planets throughout this universe. We have brought peace and happiness in so many ways." Android King says, "Learn to control anger. Learn to control aggression. It is not wise, King Vegeta, for you to be making such belittling comments regarding us androids. We are more than capable of controlling our behavior. We are perfect machines, unlike you and your gang of apes. We will not accept this type of discrimination against us. We will give you one chance to leave our planet peacefully, without any conflict." So then the king responds, King Vegeta that is, "I apologize, you have taken these comments in a way that I was not intending. Do not think I view ourselves as superior to you. If anything, we can view ourselves as different equals. Us Saiyans have been able to learn so much and acquire a vast array of knowledge throughout generations. With this information, we've been able to contribute in so many positive ways to this universe. We would simply like you to also be a part of this development, of this history, that will produce great benefits for life, for generations upon generations. Do you understand my intentions?" Android King says, "Yes, King Vegeta. I understand your intentions very clearly, and because of this, you must die." And in a flash moment, quicker than anyone could react, a piercing laser burrowed its way through the heart of King Vegeta, eyes open as the Saiyan King falls immediately to the ground, lifeless. A skirmish commences as the Android King vanishes and a band of android soldiers appear from ambush positions surrounding the palace of the Android King where this meeting was taking place. The Saiyan troops retreat ASAP, instructing their pilots to get the ship ready for an immediate evacuation as they struggle to fight off the hordes of android soldiers approaching them. The violence ensues. 2 Saiyan soldiers are killed in the chaos, of the remaining troops finally arrive back at their ship and depart as quickly as possible from the Red Planet. The android king informs his soldiers not to pursue the Saiyans. He says, "What a fool the king and his monkeys are to think that they can control and manipulate us androids." So as the remaining Saiyan troops arrive back to planet Vegeta, they immediately go to the main headquarters where the king and prince would reside. Standing there is a young Prince Vegeta with a distasteful look on his face, as usual. But even the young Saiyan prince knew something was off. Keep in mind, Prince Vegeta has no idea and had no idea of where his father was for the last few days. So, with that being said, one of the main guards for King Vegeta, stood at attention before the prince and said, quote, "Prince Vegeta, it is my unfortunate duty to inform you that your father, King Vegeta, was killed while on a peacekeeping mission to an undisclosed planet." Silence fills the air for only a quick second before the prince replies, "What? What do you mean killed? What peacekeeping mission? Is this some sick joke my father is playing to me? I will not be treated like a child who goes to sleep with medieval bedtime stories." One of the troops standing next to the bodyguard whispered that perhaps they should leave the Saiyan prince alone for some time. The bodyguard agreed and said, "My prince, I am sorry to have upset you. We will leave you in peace. But now, even you must understand. You will no longer be the prince. You will no longer be referred to as Prince Vegeta. You are now king. The king. King Vegeta." So that does conclude episode 1 here of my fan-made story on how Prince Vegeta ends up becoming King Vegeta. Of course, I am turning this into an episodic series. I'm not sure exactly how many episodes I'm going to make this story, but it will continue. Obviously, it will have a ending, so to speak. I'm still kind of putting together the rest of the pieces in regards to how I want the story to transition from episode to episode. Let me know what you guys thought in the comment section below. It's the first time I've ever really done something like this in regards to narrating and telling a story much different from, I should say, stories that we actually have known when it comes to the Dragon Ball universe. Of course, the point of fan-made stories is to bring characters to life and to create things based off of your own imagination on some alternative ideas or alternative stories you would like to actually see come to life. And this is something that I think I've always kind of been into as far as the whole Prince and King Vegeta dynamic is concerned. To have something occur differently than what I'd say most people would think of immediately that comes to their head. I thought creating a planet of actual androids would be really cool, as opposed to just dealing with a few. I think that'd be pretty interesting, and hopefully you guys will like that as we continue to go forward in this story. Like I said, let me know what you thought in the comment section below. Welcome back to the story of how Vegeta becomes king. This is episode 2 in this series, so do me a favor, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Make sure to leave a comment down below and your thoughts in regards to how this story is going so far and anything you would like added or to be implemented. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Of course, in episode 1 we left off with Vegeta hearing the news that his father, King Vegeta, was obviously killed and assassinated on planet Android en route to a peacekeeping mission. There was a battle that did ensue between the Saiyans and the androids. Saiyans took casualties amongst some of their highest members. Androids did not take any. Now, obviously, Prince Vegeta has learned of this. He has now essentially become, obviously, the king. He is next in line for the throne, and keep in mind, he is still very young of age. He is only 10 years old at this time, so that is a huge responsibility on the shoulders of Prince Vegeta, who is now King Vegeta. So after hearing the news of his father's assassination, Prince, or I should say now King Vegeta, goes back to his room, essentially, where he's sitting there contemplating what he just heard, and he's just filled with so much anger and just resentment and bitterness because his father never really spent any time with him, and now he is officially gone. Not only that, now Vegeta has to be king. This is not something he was quite ready to be thrusted into as of yet, but that's exactly what ended up happening. But then he starts to shake his head and says to himself, I'm better off without him anyways. He was never around. I'll be a better king than he ever will be. And then Vegeta eventually starts going to train in his room by himself until the next morning. He is then greeted by one of his fellow officers that says, King Vegeta, it is time to begin your daily training mission. Of course, Vegeta, with his arrogance and his cockiness, says, I don't need to train with you, yada yada yada. But his officer insists that he does train with his fellow officers to obviously build that camaraderie, as well as it's part of the responsibility of king. Now, this is only important to Vegeta now at his current age because he is still young. Keep in mind, his father was completely grown, so it was not his responsibility to continue his training once he was at a certain age. But because our current King Vegeta, aka the old Prince Vegeta, is only 10 years old, he still has to do a lot of training until he reaches that point where training is no longer mandatory for his responsibilities as king. Just wanted to include that in there because I'm sure some people would probably be questioning that. So as Vegeta and his highest ranking officers go to their training quarters, King Vegeta insists that none of his officers take it lightly on him. They insist that they will use all of their power and their strength to demonstrate what the king can show so far. So Vegeta begins to spar with his ranking officer who is currently third in command. Some basic hand-to-hand exchanges are made, and his fellow officers are really surprised at the strength of the prince, well, now referred to as the king. In fact, they can see some of this quote-unquote strength is actually a result of this anger and this tenacity that King Vegeta has been storing up in himself, obviously with the neglect of his father. The new king is able to deliver an excruciating punch right to the midsection that sends his third officer in command flying backwards. The rest of the room is stunned as they see how efficient this king is at such an early age, at the age of 10, how finesse Vegeta is as a fighter. One of the spectators, aka one of his officers, mentions that his technique is incredible for somebody of his age. He's going to turn into a great fighter and an even better king. Vegeta clearly overhears this and says, "I don't want your pondering. Tell that fool to get back up on his feet and fight me for real." The third ranking officer he just knocked down looked at Vegeta puzzled and said, "I am fighting you seriously, Your Honor. This is not a joke. I'm fighting as hard as I can." Vegeta, with an utmost disgusted look on his face, says without blinking at all, "You're done. You're relieved of your command. Who's next?" The officer drops his mouth and goes, What? Your Honor, what do you mean relieved of my command?" The king says, "Do not make me repeat myself or I will have you banished. Now leave." A couple soldiers escort the battered and embarrassed officer who has now been relieved of his command. This takes an interesting twist in the story because Vegeta is so strong at his age that he feels that if his officer can't even give him a real fight, why should he be serving underneath him? So after that first sparring session, now Vegeta's highest ranking officer, aka the one who broke the news to him about his father, steps up and says, "Okay, it's my turn now. And do not think I will go lightly on you because of your age. If the training gets too serious, we will stop and resume another time." King Vegeta mutters, "Whatever." So now, part 2 of the training session commences. Again, the soldiers in the room are just absolutely astonished at how King Vegeta at age 10 is able to match blow for blow the same moves of his commanding officers. During the battle, Vegeta yells in frustration, "Is this really the strength of the Saiyan warriors? This is why my father was killed? None of you fools could even have the strength or power to protect him. What a joke." And just when you thought King Vegeta was about to embarrass another one of his officers, he dropped his guard for a second in the midst of his frustration, and then he was sent flying back with a kick right to his face. And as he smashes the ground, he begins to get up, slowly. The anger is clearly building in his face and in his expression. At this point, the young king is fighting purely on anger. He then lets out a huge battle cry that shakes the very foundation of the training room within the castle. He charges at his officer with the utmost speed, catching him completely off guard. Flying forearms, elbows, kicks, whatever you want to call it, all this is being done. His officer starts to begin to bleed at the mouth and things are getting quite serious. One of the spectating soldiers yells, "That's it, that's enough, he will kill him!" Of course, at this point, all Vegeta sees is red. He is fueled on anger and rage, and he is not thinking about whether or not killing his officer is a good or bad idea. Driven by anger, the sparring session that was supposed to be very simple is now turned into a complete mauling of one of his own officers. And out of nowhere, before the damage could get worse to his fellow ranking officer, Vegeta is stunned, tased. His body is completely locked up and then he falls to the ground, essentially paralyzed. A few of the soldiers used some of their taser weapons that was able to immobilize the king. The commanding officer that Vegeta was beating down says slowly, trying to catch his breath and regain some consciousness, says, "I'm sorry, Your Honor, but we had no choice. We feared that the anger of your father's passing may have sent you into a blind rage and we prepared for this just in case. Escort the king to the recuperation chamber." King Vegeta is then taken away by fellow soldiers, obviously still immobilized and not able to fight back or do anything And that concludes episode 2 here on the story of how Vegeta becomes king. Welcome back to the story on how Vegeta becomes king. This is episode 4 in the series. I appreciate you guys' love and support. As always, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new for more fan-made stories like this that I have created, as well as other Dragon Ball content. So, as we left off in episode 3, there was a time skip where Vegeta grew up to obviously be a teen. And you guys remember from the beginning of the story, Vegeta's father was killed, aka assassinated, in the meeting between the Saiyans and the androids on planet Android. So when the time skip happens in episode 3, Vegeta goes back to that planet to avenge his father's death and kills not just any ordinary androids, but he kills their civilians. He kills their civilians, and then Officer Baron calls the Galactic Patrol because of these most recent events. Officer Baron is one of Vegeta's higher ups in the chain of command, and he sees that Vegeta is starting to lose his way. He's starting to become a loose cannon, and someone needs to come in to essentially stop him. He's much more powerful than obviously all of his commanders and his subordinates, so someone else has to intervene, especially because it was not a part of their mission to go back to planet Android to slaughter innocent civilians that have nothing to do with the events that occurred when King Vegeta, Vegeta's father, was assassinated there. So that is where we currently are, heading here into episode 4. So now back to present day, we fast forward in the future again with another time skip. Now Vegeta is officially an adult over the age of 18. I'd say he's about in his early to mid 20s. This time around though, he visits planet Yardrat. He tells his officers that he needs to learn new techniques, he needs to get stronger. And he ends up going to planet Yardrat to learn instant transmission. This was passed down kind of as a rumor from a couple Saiyans talking in the mess halls there, and Vegeta heard about it and he's like, instant transmission sounds interesting. I want to go find out about it. So he goes to planet Yardrat and he tells the Yardratians that he needs them to teach him instant transmission. Now keep in mind, this is a very evil version of Vegeta, so he's not going there under peaceful terms. He's not going there just politely asking. He's essentially threatening them to teach him the technique or he will kill all of them. So they all basically said, okay, we will teach you instant transmission as long as you promise not to hurt any of us in any way. Vegeta, quote unquote, promises to keep up his end of the deal, and he begins to learn instant transmission. And this is very self-explanatory, similar to how Goku learned and to how actually Vegeta learns in the actual Dragon Ball Super manga. So it doesn't take too long for Vegeta to learn instant transmission. I would say about a couple of days to about a week. He gets frustrated as he's trying to learn this technique because he's not getting it, obviously, and he's very tense. And one of the main components of learning this technique is to be very calm, to be very zen. So it took him a while to get to that point. And then once he finally gets there, his motivation is not what you think. His motivation for getting to that point is being able to be the strongest, not just the strongest Saiyan, but the strongest fighter in all of the universe. That is what allowed him to get to a state of calmness, so to speak, where he's going to be at a point that nobody will be able to touch him. And the more techniques he learns, the more powerful he'll become, and the less chance anyone has of being able to stand in his way. So after he effectively and efficiently learns a technique, right before he's about to leave planet Yardrat, he does what, of course, he promised not to do. Vegeta begins to terrorize the Yardratians after learning the instant transmission, breaking his end of the deal like he promised. And this sends a message to the time patrollers. The events are transmitted. One Yardratian is able to survive. He has some prior experience with the with the Galactic Patrol because of previous fighters, previous characters coming to their planet, harassing them. This is not the first time that someone has come to their planet to ask them about this instant transmission technique. So one of the Yardratians who was able to survive gets in contact with the Galactic Patrol, says that they need to send a time patroller to stop this mad Saiyan. So this is the second time the Galactic Patrol has been called. They were called in episode 3 from one of Vegeta's officers. Now they are called from one of the Yardratians, and they said, you know, this guy is crazy. He just slaughtered all of our civilians here. Someone, a time patroller, has to come and has to do something here. Otherwise, I'm afraid he's going to terrorize and possibly kill all that exists within the universe. And as the episode comes to a close, a time patroller is on his way, and this time patroller, guys, is a Saiyan himself. So episode 5, we are going to see a potential showdown between a time patroller that we are not familiar with, or maybe we are, and Vegeta, who has now learned instant transmission and is pretty much on a complete tear. So that concludes episode 4 here of the story in regards to how Vegeta has become king. Welcome back to the story on how Vegeta becomes king. This is episode 5 in the series. If you guys haven't watched the previous 4 episodes, please make sure to do that in the playlist. I should be linking that playlist in the description box below, as well as in the comment section of this video. So just a quick summary of chapter 4, and before we get to that, guys, make sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you are new to the channel for fan-made stories and Dragon Ball content. Episode 4, there's another time skip. Vegeta now is officially an adult, and he hears about this he hears this rumor about this technique called instant transmission from Saiyans in one of the mess halls. So Vegeta decides to go to planet Yardrat, and he essentially threatens the Yardratians to teach him this technique. They said they would teach him the technique if he promised not to kill them or hurt them in any way. Vegeta, quote unquote, promises, and essentially things play out as they would for someone that's evil. Vegeta takes about a week to learn the technique. He breaks his promise. He kills all the Yardratians except for one. One of the survivor ends up calling Galactic Patrols. This is the second time Galactic Patrol has been called, asking for assistance, a time patrol or something to come and stop the Saiyan. Galactic Patrol gets the message loud and clear. They are sending someone on the way, and that is where episode 5 will begin. So episode 5 begins with Vegeta returning back to his planet, and the vibes are just off. His commanders, his subordinates, they all feel very scared and very afraid of being under his command, because they feel like he has lost his mind. They feel like there is no reasoning with the king, and they don't know what to do. Now Baron, one of his higher ups, the first one who contacted the Galactic Patrol in episode 3, is very weary. He's very worried, and he's just hoping that the Galactic Patrol has heard their message, because keep in mind, nobody on planet Vegeta knows that there was, first of all, a survivor. Vegeta didn't even realize there was a surviving Yardratian who contacted Galactic Patrol again, and now they are taking the situation much more seriously, and now they're actually sending a time patroller to deal with Vegeta. So nothing really happens once Vegeta gets back. Like I said, just very high tensions with everybody, knowing how Vegeta has been acting, what he has done as far as slaughtering the civilians on planet Android. Of course, you know, the events on planet Yardrat are not known by everybody except for his higher ups in the chain of command. So it is very tense back on planet Vegeta. And now we finally get the introduction of the fighter who is being sent by the Galactic Patrol to deal with Vegeta, and it is none other than Time Patroller Goku from the future, coming back here to this present time to deal with Vegeta. He was updated on the situation as far as Vegeta going to planet Android, what he did there, what he did on planet Yardrat. Events were also told of what probably caused Vegeta to snap, taking us all the way back to Vegeta as a child when he learned of his father's assassination. So Time Patroller Goku is updated on all of this information as he is en route to planet Vegeta. Now, in a cruel way to demonstrate his instant transmission technique on fighters he deems much more stronger than the Yardratians, Vegeta orders one of his commanding officers to go out to the field with him to quote-unquote train and spar. Now, of course, all the officers know what happens when you spar with Vegeta. Even when he was a kid and he was sparring with his officers, he was really close to killing one of them. So none of them have ever been behind the idea of sparring with Vegeta after they witnessed one of their own officers come very close to death. So anytime that idea has been pitched, it has always been met with worry and fear out of his commanding officer. So as they're in the field, of course, Vegeta is literally just humiliating this officer using instant transmission, again beating him down damn near to the point of death. And out of nowhere, somebody teleports right in front of him, and it is Time Patroller Goku. Time Patroller Goku has finally arrived. He lets Vegeta know about the events that have occurred. He lets him know that he is aware of everything that he has done. He says Vegeta has lost his mind, and he says Vegeta needs to come back with him as ordered the Galactic Patrol, and if Vegeta refuses to follow this order, they will fight and death may be a result of this encounter. And this is what's going to happen here for the conclusion of episode 5 in this story. Time Patroller Goku is going to be facing off against Vegeta here, and we're going to see exactly how this plays out and what ends up happening when both of these guys square off against one another.
This'll be a match to remember. Get ready, Vegeta!
Kakarot! No longer will I be overshadowed by you!
And just like that, the king has fallen. Xeno Goku, Time Patroller Goku, however you want to refer to him, has put down Vegeta. Now the questions going into the future are as follows. Is Vegeta really done for good? Will he be arrested? Will him and Goku fight again, except that time will he suffer the fate of death? What is going to happen and how is he going to retaliate?